The Eel River is just a tremendously large watershed. It's the third largest watershed entirely in California. It's 3,684 square miles. And it extends across such a large geographic area that you have so many different issues in different towns and people and different fish populations throughout the whole watershed. My name is Darren. I'm the North Coast Director for California Trout. My region extends from the Oregon border all the way down through the Eel River and inland, including the Trinity River. Up here on the North Coast, we're focused on implementing state and federal recovery plans for salmon and steelhead. We have 3 listed species, the North Coast Chinook, coho salmon, and steelhead. My program is primarily focused on working with state and federal agencies trying to implement their recovery plans and bring back our native fish populations. So in 2012, CalTrout launched the Eel River Forum. The forum is a coalition of 22 state and federal agencies, tribes, nonprofit organizations like CalTrout, and stakeholders in the watershed, residents who care about the Eel River. We've brought these people together to try to focus our energy and financial resources, funding resources, to accomplish a more meaningful recovery in the eel. So with the Eel River Forum as our foundation, CalTrout's trying to take a watershed-wide approach to recovery in the eel. In the Eel River estuary, we're working with the Wildlands Conservancy and other ranchers trying to restore passage into some of the tidal slough channels through historic tide gates and into rich tidal marshlands that are really important nursery habitat for salmon and steelhead. We've partnered with the Wildlands Conservancy and another ranching operation, the Russ Ranch and Timber. We're trying to promote fish passage through the historic tide gates that were installed several decades ago and get fish into the really rich rearing habitat in the slough channels. Centerville Slough will be restored, connection to Russ Creek and the headwaters of the Wildcat Range south of Ferndale will be restored, and tidal marshland that's historically really abundant in the region will bring some of that back. Along the main stem Eel River, we're trying to address fish passage issues. We're currently focused on 2 projects. One is Bridge Creek and the other is the Woodman Creek project, where we're removing barriers at the mouth of these tributaries to restore passage into these watersheds that had natal spawning and rearing habitat that have been cut off by railroad crossings or other barriers erected. So Bridge Creek was an interesting site. It was a barrier to fish passage erected by the railroad about a century ago. Fish haven't been into the watershed for many, many decades. We came along and found this barrier, prioritized this as a project, and worked for several years with the North Coast Rail Authority to try to get permission and a program and plan in place to remove this barrier. So in 2014, all the stars aligned. We had our construction crews go in and take out the whole barrier and restore a channel connection to the Eel River. The railroad's been around for 100 years, and this is the first time that a conservation organization has been successful at convincing them to allow us to take out their railroad tracks so we can allow fish back into their natal rearing habitats in Bridge Creek. So when they built the railroad through the Eel River Canyon, the Railroad Authority just blasted a hole through the bedrock to provide a new mouth for the Woodman Creek tributary. And they took all that fill material and plugged the old historic river mouth of Woodman Creek. So our project's going to remove that fill and take it away and restore the historic confluence of Woodman Creek with the Eel River. So on the South Fork Eel, we've launched a pretty ambitious project. It's the South Fork Eel Water Conservation Program. We are trying to address the low summer flows and water diversions that are causing impairment to summer rearing habitat for salmon and steelhead. We're trying to address some of the discrepancies and deficiencies in state policy that regulate water rights, and ultimately trying to get people to be more responsible about how they divert water for their own human uses. Up in the headwaters of the Eel River, we have the Potter Valley project. It's a PG&E project that diverts water from the Eel into the Russian River watershed. So we're working with our partners in the headwaters there to quantify habitat above Lake Pillsbury that historically was available to salmon and steelhead but was cut off when Lake Pillsbury was built. We'll need this information when we get to the FERC relicensing that's coming up in 2016 and 2017. Here on the North Coast, CalTrout is committed to the recovery of wild salmon and steelhead populations throughout the state, and with emphasis on the North Coast region, where we have just amazing opportunity to promote salmon and steelhead recovery.